Alechtig Chanukah Sparkers, I'm sure that everyone's enjoying their different gatherings or festivities that they're engaging in. Even though the Shulchan Aruch tells us in Siman Tafresh Ayin that those gatherings are not a mitzvah, the Mechaber is of the opinion that it's just gatherings that are Rishus, although the Ramah says that there is Ktsas mitzvah, which we'll talk about, but the Mechaber maintains that the gatherings that take place on Chanukah are not obligatory. There is no Kaviyas. Chazal did not establish the days of Chanukah for feasting and gladness like it did by Purim. And the Mishnah Berurah brings the words of the Levush to explain the difference between Purim and Chanukah as follows. Why on Purim is there an obligation to have a party? It's an open pasuk, you may Mishnah B'Simcha. Yet on Chanukah we don't find that there's any such mitzvah. And in fact, the Mechaber deems it necessary to point out that there is no obligation to have a Seudah on Chanukah. Says the Mishnah Berurah, bring the Levush, because on Purim we were threatened. Our physical existence was threatened. We were threatened with absolute annihilation, complete obliteration. And therefore, when we were rescued, it's appropriate that we have a Seudah that we celebrate because our very bodies were endangered. Masha'enkin, when it comes to Chanukah, there was a threat to our religion. Antiochus never was geyser, he never wanted to hurt us physically. Well, ultimately, he intended that as well. But initially, all he wanted was that we should convert, that we should all become Greek, and all serve their gods and accept their practices. But he never intended that we should experience physical. And if we had just been, accepted their rule and their authority, they would have left us alone. So therefore, we don't celebrate physically. We don't celebrate with a feast and gladness because they only attacked us spiritually. Comes along the Taz, and he's very disturbed by this statement of Levush. And he attacks. How can you talk that way? You're telling us that on Chanukah, they would have left us alone. We just would have been Greek. So it wasn't as much of a celebration. There wasn't as much at risk. How can you suggest that? Rashi in Kiseitze says explicitly, if you seduce someone to live a life of sin, you've done much worse to him than if you kill him. If you kill him, remove him from this world. But if you seduce him to do something evil, so then you take him out of this world and the next world. Frek the Taz, that should be more of a reason to celebrate on Chanukah. And for that reason, the Taz, it's also brought in the Shartzi, in the bottom of Mishnah Berurah, he argues with the Levush and says that can't be. He gives his own explanation. Comes along the Aruch HaShulchan and explains very simply, I think the way any of us reading the Levush would understand. Comes the Aruch HaShulchan and he says, the Levush never meant to suggest that the threat on Purim that they wanted to kill us is worse than the threat on Chanukah that they wanted to entice us to their customs and their practices. Chas v'shalom, that's not what Levush meant. He meant very simply, on Purim we were threatened physically. Lakach Kishitzilim, we celebrate Ayidei Mishva Simcha Gamkein. It's just appropriate. Zelu Mazeh. Since we were threatened physically, we therefore celebrate physically. But on Chanukah, there was no such threat. They only wanted to do it when don't take the word only out of context. When it says only, it means there was no threat physically. So it's appropriate when we were saved, the celebration is appropriate that it should be Ayidei Hal V'Haida. Only because there was a spiritual threat, so that's why we celebrate spiritually. Lakach, Seif Him Xeris HaNefesh, Lakach Tzrichen L'Sameach HaNefesh B'Hal V'Tayra, V'Taydos Miras B'Shiras V'Shpachos. Ein L'Guf Inyan B'Zeh. Zok the Aruch HaShulchan, the Levush simply means to say that since we were threatened, our neshamas were threatened, that is what the Yontif is about. Lakach, L'Shana Cheres, Kavim V'Asim Yamei L'Hal L'Haida. The purpose of Chanukah is not for Mishpah Simcha, rather for Hal L'Haida. Now, I'll just end off with the words of the Ramah. The Ramah tells us that there actually is an inyan to make a Seudah. It's the Ramah writing after the Mechaber, Yeshem Sheyesh Ksas Mitzvah B'Ribei HaSeudais. There is an inyan to have a Seudah. Why? Mishan Ba'esin HaYamim HaChanukah HaMizbeach. In the days of Chanukah was the Chanukah HaMizbeach, as the Medrash tells us. And since the Mizbeach was erected in the time of Chanukah, that is a reason why we should have a Ksas Mitzvah. And the Ramah tells us that it would be appropriate Everybody will agree if it's a Suda that includes singing to Hashem and singing songs of praise and expressions of thanks and Halvaidah to Hashem and those Sudas, everybody agrees that that would constitute a Sudas mitzvah. We should all be careful, and it's a good idea, wherever you're having even a small meal that you have on Chanukah, to express some form of Haidah through a Zemer, through Divrei Torah, through Divrei Shiras V'Sishpachas, by the Sudas we have on Chanukah, and then we'll be Zeicha to be having Sudas Mitzvahs on Chanukah as well.